Okay, what we have here is a Ford Focus. One of Ford's mass-selling cars. Right, what can we tell you about this car? Well, obviously it is a used model. It's considerably old. I think it's best part of about 8 years old, maybe more. Well, the interior, despite its sturdy condition, the interior is a little bit confusing. I'm looking at the dials on the dashboard now, and it's very difficult to define what's going on there. It looks a bit of a mess, and I'll tell you the reason why it looks a mess. It's not the two dials here or the two dials on the outside. It's the fact that you've got all these areas here which will illuminate for ABS, parking brake, oil, etc., etc., brake wear, and it just confuses the whole area. It just makes it too complicated. If you're going to have a dial which gives you information, just have the illumination. You don't need to put a circle around it. It's just too much information to look at when you're driving down the road. Bang, what speed are we doing? Bang, what's the revs? How's the fuel? What's the temperature of the engine? Visibility, right, out the rear view mirror, perfect. But the thing that springs to my mind is the side mirrors. They appear to be too low down. When I want to look left or I want to look right, all I want to do is cast my eyes over. I don't want to have to move my head physically to see what's coming. And that's exactly what I have to do with these mirrors. I have to turn and look down. Now, if you're doing that 300 times a day, or 3,000 times a day, it's soon going to become an action that you're very, very aware of. Obviously a front-wheel drive car. Steering feels nice, it feels quite responsive, and I actually feel like I'm seated high up, which is quite bizarre really when I consider this is not a big car. The shocks, I wouldn't describe them as sloppy, but they're actually quite firm. This is not the sports version, but this car feels quite responsive. Because of the fact that you're seated high and the way the shocks are, it does feel like this car's a bit top heavy. And I suppose when I consider that it is a short wheelbase car and it has a lot of headroom, that's probably where it's coming into play. It is quite spacious on the inside. You could certainly get 4 adults in here and some luggage quite comfortably. This is obviously a very economical way to travel with a car of this age and of this condition. But I think at the end of the day, if you wanted to have a vehicle as a cheap run around and you're going to get a few people in it, like your kids to school, etc., etc., you know, I don't think you can go wrong with this. It's cheap, but it's not nasty. In fact, if it was cleaned up, it'd actually be quite a decent vehicle. There is a lot of noise coming from the car. I'm not referring to the engine or the transmission tunnel. I mean the noise from the wind. It doesn't sound like it's too aerodynamic, this vehicle, at all. It feels more like I'm driving down the road in a van. There's a lot of wind resistance. Yes, this vehicle definitely feels top heavy. This is the manual version, 5 gears. You know, generally speaking, I think if you've got a limited budget and you want a quick run around, I don't think you're going to go wrong with one of these. But as I keep coming back to, this driving position feels quite awkward. I can't quite understand why I'm sitting so high up. Surely there must be an adjustment for that, but it could be the design of the vehicle. This is a commuting vehicle. It's designed for that and nothing else. It certainly wouldn't be a comfortable car if you were driving a sports version of this. The driving position is too unnatural. It's quite an uncomfortable car to be sitting in, to be fair. The only way I can describe it is, if you can imagine what it's like sitting on a bar stool. I feel like I'm sitting on a bar stool now. Every time I turn, I feel myself leaning over. And to be quite honest, if I was going down the motorway at 60 miles an hour and I had to swerve lane, I'd be pretty damn sure this car wouldn't take too much to flip over. That's obviously not what somebody wants. It doesn't feel poorly put together. It doesn't have the Germanic engineering feel, but it doesn't feel like it's something that's going to fall apart after 4 or 5 years. I think this was built to last a good 15 years, and I think that's about what it's good for. This one's coming up to 100,000 miles, and I would say it's probably got about a couple of years left in it at the most. The good thing about these cars, if you're in Europe, is the parts. The parts are not going to cost you much at all, and you're certainly going to have no problem getting them. It does appear to have airbags fixed. It has an airbag on the steering wheel, it has an airbag on the passenger side. I'm not aware of any others at this moment in time. The brakes, well, I'm not too sure we've got discs all around on this. It feels to me like we might have the drum brakes on the back. I could be wrong, but there's certainly not a lot of braking ability when you consider when you consider basically at least 65% of the braking is done by the front of the car. It's not really an enormous issue to have drum brakes on a smaller car, but boy oh boy oh boy, you certainly know when you've got them. I think to summarise, basically, if you are looking for a cheap runaround, because that's what this is going to be, it's a 2003 model. You know, if you're not going to be driving far, maybe back and forth to work each day, to the shops, then this is great. It's not a comfortable car to drive. I'm not enjoying driving it at all. Not because it's a Ford, not because it's a Focus, but it's not complementing what it's doing in any way at all. The steering, I could be driving a lawnmower, I could be driving a go-kart. I don't really feel that I'm connecting with this car at all, and I don't really feel like the car's connecting with the road. I feel, rather than being at cause over what I'm doing, I'm more in effect. It's one of those cars that I feel if I went round a corner on a speed bump, I'd probably feel the steering being moved, steering wheel being moved. The steering wheel actually does feel rather cumbersome. So look, if you want a cheap car, if one of these comes up and you just want a cheap run around from A to B, then fine. But if you're looking for comfort, if you're looking for a pleasurable driving experience, then I would have to say no, because it is uncomfortable. I've been driving this less than 10 minutes, my back's already aching, I can feel every bump on the road, there's a lot of noise coming from the wind, I can hear underneath the car so loud it's almost like there's no panels there at all. The engine actually isn't too bad on the noise front. This car is a mass manufactured car. It's built to be used, and it's built to be used, and it's also built to break down. So this is not a car that's going to last you a long time, but it's not going to be an expensive car to fix or maintain, but it certainly won't be giving you any driving pleasure. It feels like I'm sitting on a wooden horse rolling down a cobbled street, to be quite honest. So I personally wouldn't buy one of these unless I had to. So if you have to buy one, buy one.